Felt so good when you looked my way. Take me down on the floor, baby, say my name. Let's get ooh. Let's get ooh. Let's get.
Nick, thank you very much for joining us today and coming along. And
It's a pleasure.
would you like to just give us an introduction on yourself?
Sure. My name's Nick Launay. I'm a record producer and I've been making records for an incredible 35 years. Can't believe that. I started off working with a lot of what would be called post-punk bands back in the very early 80s. I worked with Johnny Rotten with Public Image, Gang of Four, Killing Joke, The Slits, did a record with Kate Bush. Later on I worked with a couple of Australian bands like In Excess, Midnight Oil and Silverchair. And more recently I've done albums with Arcade Fire and the Yeah Yeahs and about 9 albums now with Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. So I don't know how I've had a normal life within that, but somehow I have.
So you've worked with some of the most successful, amazing bands and people and artists. Do you have a feeling right from the get-go that this is going to be something really special?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain albums that I get offered that I sort of... I would say there's two kind of scenarios. There's the scenario where I get offered an album with a band that I'm already a huge fan of them, and I can't believe my luck that they've actually got in touch with me, and then it's a case of looking at what type of record they want to do, and you know sometimes they'll want to do something quite different to what I would have hoped. So then it's a case of discussion. With newer bands, to me it's all about the songs and the way that they've interpreted those songs. So if it's a new band that's never made a record before and I'm asked to do their debut album, I really do, you know, get very deep into what it is they're trying to do, because you know, those kind of records it's all about coming up with the character. Or if they have a character already, which luckily for me, most of the bands are characterful because they tend to have listened to records I've done before that are like that and have an aesthetic of wildness or rebellion or whatever. You know, it's a matter of me really listening to what they do and seeing them live and talking to the people in the band, and then I, you know, exaggerate whatever that feeling is. You know, so yeah, so but I sometimes there's, you know, I get presented with like maybe 18 songs demos, and I will go through it, and there'll be 1 or 2 that are just these killer songs, you know, and that's what gets me really excited. What
Would be the one bit of advice you would give to a new artist coming into town?
I think a piece of advice that I always give new artists is be original, be unique, and be as different as you can to anybody out there. I mean, it's an impossible thing because we're now, you know, what are we, 40 years, 50 years into rock and roll now, you know, so how can you become a unique rock artist? I mean, it's been done. However, there, you know, it is possible to be influenced by others and still be, you know, original in the way you do it, because your take on it is different to anyone else. I think that when artists are trying to be another artist too much, it's absolutely pointless. And I find I really stay away from those kind of artists. I mean, I get offered a lot of bands that contact me want to sound like another band I've already worked with, and just on a personal level, why would I want to work with them when I've already done the one that they're copying? So that doesn't that so yeah. My advice is to just be unique, be different. Think of if you're coming up with a character for yourself, which most artists are, whether they own up to it or not, it doesn't matter. Just be different. Just be different, because that entertainment is all about bringing something new to the public.
Can you tell us about a pivotal moment in your career that changed everything for you?
I mean, well, for me, there's been quite a few pivotal moments. I've been doing it for 35 years, which I find unbelievable. And my career's gone, has had these incredible highs that I just cannot believe how successful a record is being. And then there's other moments where I'm just like, when am I going to work again? So it's, but probably the most important pivotal moment of my career would be the first thing that happened, which is where I got given a lucky break. And that for me was, I was an assistant engineer in the recording studio with Johnny Rotten. And to cut a very long story short, we got on well. He seemed to like me because I think I was just very honest, and he likes honesty. And that led to him feeling comfortable around me, and we ended up doing a record together. So that was, I think he made my career start. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about lucky breaks. I really do believe everybody gets lucky breaks. We get lucky breaks quite often. The key to lucky breaks is recognizing that they're a lucky break, and acting on them and delivering to them. Now, I've seen a lot of people, artists in all kinds of different types of entertainment and stuff, get lucky breaks right in front of me, and they don't pick up on it, and they do nothing. Or they get offered something like, they'll meet a film director. Oh, you should come down to the set and hang out.
And they don't go.
And they don't go because maybe they wanted to hang out with their girlfriend or something else, or they wanted to go to the movie, so they don't act on that. And that very thing, they could have gone and hung out, and that could have turned into them getting offered a part. So I think you have to be a workaholic all the time if you really, really want to succeed in entertainment. And I think that goes for all kinds of entertainment. It's a crazy business. And those who work really, really hard and devote all their time, every hour of every day to it, will get there. But you have to act on these lucky breaks and be constantly, constantly have a radar, like, could that turn into something? And you have to have the imagination to think where that could lead in the best possible scenario, because those best possible scenarios often do happen.
Can you tell me, you have seen so much in the business over the years, have you ever seen somebody's ego destroy or really harm their career? Yeah,
I mean, I've been very aware of some pretty famous people who have destroyed their career out of their egos. Terence Trent D'Arby is one person that was very talked about back in the 80s, who just, he had so many demands on so many people that it really hurt. It really hurt his career, and everybody thought he was going to be the next Michael Jackson, But for me, with the bands I've worked with and the artists I've worked with, I've seen it on a smaller scale, where maybe one member in a band has a big ego, and they affect the other members. Yeah. And then it causes this sort of unrest and awkwardness between them, and you end up as a record producer, I have to. I end up dealing with a lot of this stuff, almost like a psychiatrist, because I'll see, every band I work with has a dynamic between the people, and very often the singer is kind of the leader. That's the usual case. The singer is the main songwriter or the main lyric writer, and they always have an ego, because in order to go up on stage and do what they do, they have to have an ego. They have to have a belief in themselves as a star, you know. So I think the sheer nature of that front person's job, they're going to have an ego. Now, some of these people have it in check, and they have a character that they become when they go on stage, and that's always very interesting to me. I mean, there's a lot of actually the more successful artists I know, they really do have their stage persona, and that same persona carries through to the music videos and carries through to interviews when they do it. So the public doesn't really know the real one. I mean, a very, very good example, and I think a charming example of that is Karen O from the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, and I've done 2 albums with them, and she's one of my best friends. And most people's perception of her, for instance, is that she's wild, that she's full of energy, and she goes up there and she's like an animal, like a cat or something on stage. She's like, and she makes all these funny noises, and she's jumping around and dancing, and the energy is just, you know, incredible. And she's one of the all-time best live performers. And the real Karen O is very shy, very quiet. I mean, really quiet, to the point where you lean in to hear her talk. And yeah, she's just very, very sweet, very, very loving, very super bright, clever person, and full of imagination. But she's a quiet person. I mean, really quiet. Wow. And then you go backstage before she goes on, and she's really nervous and almost like pacing up and down with nerves, and almost like a movie star. You hear about them sort of, their stomachs turning, and it's all that before stage. And then and sometimes she even locks herself in a room, and I don't know what she does. I know she does all kinds of meditation and stuff, and then she goes on stage, and it's just like wow, it's this wild person, and super charismatic. That's and awesome. Smiling and talking to the crowd and all that. And then you go backstage afterwards, and it'll be this calm person.
Amazing. I think
so.
Some of the quiet people are the most interesting.
Absolutely.
They really are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even Iggy Pop. We all know Iggy Pop's probably one of the wildest people on stage. I mean, there's a similarity, I think, between Iggy and Karen O. Similarly, you see him. I've been to gigs, and I've been very lucky in that I've met him and talked with him quite a lot, and over the years, and I'm always amazed. He's got that low voice, and he's very funny, and it's almost like just charming and happy person. He goes on the stage, and he is an animal. He's like someone has let him out of the cage, and he's like, and then afterwards he calms down again, and it's very interesting. And then there's other people. I mean, Nick Cave is a fascinating person. I mean, one of my favorite artists, and I've done 9 albums with him now. And he's got this personality, this personality persona that is very sort of incredibly focused, very on point about what he wants, when he wants it, and very demanding, and incredibly impatient. And that is the character that is Nick Cave, and that is the person that is Nick Cave. He's very similar, and he actually is like that all the time, except for a few times when I've been round to his house when he's with his kids, and he's like cooked me pasta, and then he kind of is more mellow and is very, I want to say, very, very sweet, and that was a side. I mean, I probably did 4 albums with him before I saw that person, because every time I worked with him, he was in that Nick Cave mode of the persona, and he doesn't change off mic, or he's that all the time.
Is that all the time?
Yeah, and it's that's interesting because he if you meet him, on the street and go up to him, he'll most likely be kind of quite loud and in your face.
Right, okay.
And like if you go up to him, and I've been with him a few times, and it's always funny. There's always
When people come
incredible
up to him.
humour. People go up to him and go, I saw you live, you were great. And he goes, oh yeah, who are you? And they'll go, oh shit. It's funny.
Because he's so tall and amazing.
Yeah. And he's always elegant
He
and
looks
wearing the
fabulous.
suit. So he fulfills the character that people think he is.
Yeah, sure.
If you happen to see him in a supermarket, he'll still be that person.
Awesome. So, Nick, how do you sort of pick and choose who you want to work with? Because, you're so busy and there's so many artists that I'm sure would love to work with you. What do you do?
It's sometimes it's really difficult and quite heartbreaking, because if I get offered 2 bands that I really want to work with, and they both want to go into the studio roughly the same time, and they've kind of scheduled their tour and their everything to have a release date that's similar, I have to choose between one or the other, and it's really, really difficult. For me personally, money doesn't come into it at all. That's not how I've just never been interested. Sure, I want to get paid for what I do, but it's all about, like, I kind of look at it as, okay, where are the band in their career? Is their next album going to be bigger than their last? Do they have the songs? And it always in the end comes down to the songs, because we all know that these artists can, they can have a really good period of writing, followed by a really bad period of writing, and it could be to do with, let's say the main songwriter has just broken up with a partner he really loved, and it didn't work out, and he or she's devastated. Well, it can actually lead to some really good songwriting, because it's very heartfelt and it's like really genuine and it pours out. There's all kinds of things that make a songwriter write good songs. Very often debut albums are the better lyrics, because they've actually had maybe 5 years
So much
leading
time.
up to it,
Yeah.
and they've poured all their best lyrics into these maybe 12 songs. Come the second one, there's been incidences. I remember with In Excess, for instance, I was asked to do a record where they'd just been touring like crazy, and they'd had very little time off. So they it was a struggle for them to come up with an album, and they had to, because they had to keep the momentum. It's very difficult. I think another thing that artists often do is they make themselves ill, or they make themselves stressed by trying too hard, especially in the recording studio. I spend a lot of my energy and time in the studio being funny, being a clown, and making them feel like this is all about fun. And I actually sometimes talk to the young bands, and I go, look, remember why you formed the band in the first place. It was to have fun. It was to go out there and play music. That's how we're going to make this record. We're not going to go in there stressed about, I've got to do the best performance I've ever done in my life today, and it has to happen in the next hour because we're all mic'd up. I don't want you to think that way. I just want you to think like why you wrote that song, how the song makes you feel. So to me, it's all about emotions, and it's very, very important to make people focus on the really honest feelings, almost like childlike feelings, that made them become a musician or a singer in the first place.
Yeah, and just completely to stay true to themselves and authentic.
Yeah, I think it's, the really good artists are actually just being themselves. at least within the song.
Nick, I know that a lot of young artists come to town and they are petrified of this networking thing.
Right.
What sort of advice do you have regarding that? Because I know that you do a lot of business at night, right? That's where
It's true, and it's taken me a long time to sort of realise certain things, and I can tell you a sort of summary of my what I've learnt is that it's not about having the best manager. That, you know, it's important to have a good manager because the manager can connect you with people. That is true. But it's what you do with those connections and how you connect with those people. And I found that most of the work that comes my way because I've hung out with them late at night. Now, you know, you've got to put that in perspective because it relates to music, and in particular rock and roll music, because we're nocturnal people. So we go out to gigs and clubs and all that stuff. So that wouldn't apply to film people. But for instance, if I want to work with a particular band, I'm much more likely to get to work with them if I just happen to accidentally, on purpose, bump into them.
Sure.
or get introduced to them somehow that maybe I can make happen, and talk to them just one-on-one about life.
Sure.
And because at the end of the day, you're in with these people making these records. It's very, very emotional, and they're putting their heart out there and their feelings out there, and they want to work with someone that they can trust. It's like a relationship. It's really like dating, actually. And so getting your manager to contact their manager to ask if you can work together actually never works. In my experience, that doesn't work. It certainly doesn't work in rock music. Maybe in songwriting, connecting, getting someone to write a song for you, yeah, sure. Yeah. You know, that's a different thing. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for actually going out, being social, and having fun in the right places. So you have to find out where
it's all going on,
hang out,
yeah.
and you've got to just be really brave, actually, and go up to people and say hello and be charming as you can. And
that's a brilliant piece of advice.
Well, it goes very far, you know, and. If you're a very, very shy person, it's actually very difficult. But I think after a while you get the hang of it. I mean, I used to be very, very shy, and I'm not anymore. And I think it was a gradual thing. But certainly in LA, there's a lot of events going on, and you just have to go out. Just go out and go to different events. I mean, I wouldn't call them clubs. We're not talking about loud, noisy nightclubs.
We're talking about events where
we're talking about
to
events that have a show.
Yeah.
You know, some kind of art show or an art exhibit that is somehow related to music, and you go there and you see people and go, hey, you know, and I mean, I could go on about how to talk to famous people. That's an interesting topic.
Absolutely.
Because there are ways. If you've never met that person and they're famous, there are ways to talk to famous people and there are ways not to talk to them. Over time, I've learnt certain things about that, some sort of do's and don'ts. I mean, for instance, if you go up to a very famous person, say Iggy Pop, let's say, and you go, oh my God, I saw you play this and you've changed my life, and I was at this gig and it was great. All he can do is say, thank you, or I'm glad you enjoyed the gig. And the conversation goes nowhere else, because that's it. Whereas if you went up to someone like him or someone, you know, an artist who dresses well, like you might go up to them and see they've got some nice shoes, crocodile shoes on, let's say, and you go up to them and go, I like your crocodile shoes. It's nothing to do with them being famous. And they'll go, oh, thank you. And then you can go, where do you get them? Oh, I got them at blah, 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 blah. And you're on the same level as them. And it's really important because if you put them up on a pedestal, all they can do is go, thank you, but they've also heard it before. And it's just a really boring, tedious thing.
Of course.
And whereas if you talk to them about something that's actually kind of mundane, that's part of everyday life, just normal human being behavior, then you can get into a conversation. And sure, when you're chatting with them, and then you can say whatever you might want to say, like, "Oh, I saw you play. That was a really good gig." But it's just really important not to put them on a high pedestal, because they can do nothing. They can't have a conversation with you. You're just another one of maybe millions of fans. And it's nothing. And they like, they actually want to be treated like a normal person, because most of them aren't.
Yeah. So Nick, you have obviously reached a certain point in your career, like you're super successful, you're fulfilled, I'm sure. You've worked with incredible people. Yeah.
Been at the right place at the right time. And done the right thing.
And done the right thing.
That's the key.
Of course. And built amazing relationships. Do you feel like you still need to sort of get out there and,
I do.
be amongst it and
very
really
much
hustle?
so, because music changes. What's in fashion at the beginning of the year might have changed, might be out of fashion, or new things come in. And so, and new bands come along all the time, and you just kind of, I find that just even keeping up with all the new names of bands and to be in the conversation about what's going on is very important. So, and most of the connections that I make that lead to me working with artists do happen on a social level first, and I'll, a good example would be I might be out seeing, let's say, the Yeah-Yeahs, who I've worked with, and maybe Leaky Lee will be there, and I like Leaky Lee, and she's there, and I'll end up being introduced to her by maybe one of the members of the band, and suddenly that becomes something, and then that leads maybe a year, maybe 2 years later, it will turn into working together, which is really nice. And that's the nicest way of things happening, actually. So yeah, I go out a lot, and I've realized how important it is to keep doing that. I used to feel guilty about stopping work early to go out.
Right.
And now I don't anymore, because I realize that's part of my work, actually. And it's fun. It's fun. I like socializing. So, yeah. Stay current.
Stay current.
That's the thing. You've got to stay current, and you've also got to be in the moment.
Yeah.
You've got to enjoy life, and because the artists pick up on your vibe, and if your world, your vibe, your aesthetic is appealing to them, then they're more likely they want to come into your world and be part of your world, and therefore they'll ask you if they can work with you, because they see that you're having fun and that you're creating and you're doing all this stuff that's affecting others, and that's what they want to do. So they want to be part of your vibe, and that's honestly the biggest thing I think record producers in particular can offer artists, is to create a world that they want to be in, rather than the other way around, funnily enough.
What do you consider perhaps the biggest fails when you see new artists coming into Los Angeles, and what do you see that might trip them up and sort of derail them?
I think sometimes new young bands, they overthink what it is that makes for a successful artist, and they're not being true to themselves, and they're trying to project themselves onto this image of maybe another star that's already made it, and they're thinking, well, they're like that, therefore I need to be that way. Like they might see, let's say, Rihanna, and they say, oh, I have to be like Rihanna. But what they don't realize is a lot of these big pop artists have been, there's a team of maybe sometimes 15 people creating that Rihanna. The real Rihanna is probably this really cool girl who, I believe smokes quite a lot of weed and whatever. And she's obviously really talented and all that, and she's probably being herself. And then there's this machine that happens around.
Her.
And so it's not realistic. So I think that happens. That's one thing that happens.
Nick, can you tell us about your most successful record that you've done and why?
Well, to me, there's two different kinds of successes with that. There's the one that you've done that has been sold millions and millions of records and has got through to people, and people are aware of it because it was a hit. And then there's the successful, as in you went into the studio with a band to create a particular type of art, you know, a particular type of record and music, and you've absolutely achieved that, and you listen back and you go, oh my God, we really nailed this. And the band feel the same, and we're just like that. And those records could actually go out and not sell that much, but there's an incredible feeling about those. So, but going back to the first type, the big hit one, I think my biggest selling record is actually something not typical of me, which was more of a pop record with a band called Semisonic, who are from Minneapolis, and a lovely trio. And we did this album that had the song called Closing Time, which a lot of people know was like #1 everywhere. You know, the great Dan Wilson is the singer. He's just incredible lyric writer. And he's gone on to be, I mean, he's written a couple of Adele's hits now. And I mean, he's one of the most popular songwriters in the world now. But this was the first big success for him, that album. So that's the big selling one. Some of the Silverchair ones sold a lot of records, in excess of a lot.
Just a few.
There's a few out there.
Awesome. Nick, thank you so much for talking to us today. It's
My
just
pleasure.
been an absolute pleasure to have you and to have your wisdom and knowledge. And
Well, I love sharing all this stuff rather than keeping it all in my tiny little world.
yeah,
you know.
wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, and good luck to all of you out there.